Welcome to Cybermania, Cyber Talks with the brightest minds in cybersecurity. Discussing risks, AI, emerging threats, workforce challenges, and more. With your host, May Brooks.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Cybermania. Joining me today is Matthew Rosenquist. And Matthew, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today.
As always, I always ask my guests to introduce themselves by telling us a little bit about themselves, and basically your crazy story in cybersecurity.
Yeah. I've been doing cybersecurity or security for over 35 years, almost 36 years. So I started back when it was a dead-end job. Right.
No one
it wasn't called cybersecurity. It wasn't even called information security. So, but, I had a passion for it. And actually, I originally started in a role where me and my team, we were working on catching people for theft and fraud, insiders, counterfeiting, things of that sort. So, it struck a certain chord with me that I really enjoy dealing with intelligent adversaries. And in some cases, not too intelligent, but yes.
Usually.
There's somebody out there trying to outmaneuver you. They're trying to do something, and you're trying to discover them, catch them, stop them. And so I always love that aspect. So, when I got into more of the traditional cybersecurity space, it just piqued my interest. I absolutely loved it. And I ended up spending 24 years at Intel Corporation and got the opportunity to do just some incredible things and work with incredible people. It wasn't just me, right? It was a massive pool of incredible people, and we accomplished things. So I built out Intel's first 24/7 security operations center. I landed and was the company's first incident commander. So think of it as it's a CERT team. We call it a CERT team, right? Computer Emergency Response Team. I managed all the IT, the security for the IT platforms. I was a security strategist to protect all of Intel's manufacturing and assembly test sites around the globe, these 24/7 factories that are massive, bigger than football stadiums, right? And they were getting pummeled. And just on and on. I built out and ran Intel's M&A cybersecurity team. So I've done over 120 mergers, acquisitions, divestitures, site closures, and co-locations, right? And throughout my career, as I'm building up on these things, I'm also advising other peers in the country and around the world, especially in high-tech fields. And, I'm working with regulators to figure out, okay, what are we going to do with privacy? What do we need to do for this? How do we interpret these kinds of rules? All these kinds of things. From there, Intel decided to spend a few $billion, buy some security companies like McAfee, StoneSoft.
I was just about to ask you,
ones.
should I blame you for that one?
Yeah, we could talk about that, but I was not part of that decision, but I got to work with the brilliant people over there, so it was fantastic. And they brought me in as the cybersecurity strategist for this umbrella organization called Intel Security, and we had all these acquisitions under us. So I got to do the global security strategy for that and cybersecurity predictions, and McAfee brought me in to do some of their cybersecurity predictions, stuff like that. And from there, there were some challenges on the hardware side. So the hardware team brought me in, and I ended up overseeing all the security programs that were landing in the Intel Core chips, the i3, i5, i7, things of that sort. So over 120 different security features in firmware and hardware. So I got that aspect of it. And the very last thing that I did at Intel, and I was going to leave. I was ready to go out the door, and they said, no, we don't want you to leave. We're investing again a few $1 billion in this technology called AI, artificial intelligence, where we're going to build AI chips and firmware, and we're going to integrate with operating systems and applications, and we want you to come in and basically be a BISO, or a business CISO, for this $1 billion. I think I was the 33rd employee of this business group, and within a year it was 1,000 or 1,200 people something of that sort. But I own securing the infrastructure, securing the products, right? And then also being an advocate to talk about cybersecurity and AI because nobody was talking about it at the time. And that was one of my requirements to take the job is we needed to provide thought leadership for this. So, you know, after leaving Intel, I've got an advisory company, so I advise boards and companies and C-suite. I mentor CISOs, and I'm a virtual CISO as well. So I've got clients where I'm their actual CISO for smaller companies and so forth. So I have fun. I've got a podcast, and I do international speaking. I do keynotes and fun things, but my focus is always forward. And that's one of the things that kind of differentiates me is I'm looking at the threat agents, right? The people who are originating all of this, the attackers, and I'm looking forward. I think the things we see today, they're kind of interesting, right? They really started a while ago, and the things in the past are a great history lesson. But where we really need to be looking is forward. That's how we maximize our ability to protect and provide all sorts of different kinds of non-traditional asymmetric value to the organizations that we serve.
I absolutely love that your background story and everything you just shared because I think whenever I'm fortunate enough to talk to people who have been in this industry for a while now, and I've been in this industry for well over 20 years now, we didn't call it cybersecurity. We didn't call it information security. We didn't know what CISO or BISO
They
was.
didn't exist.
I remember my first role out of the IDF. I was already doing information security for a while then. And the only company I knew of that is doing something similar to what I was doing was a small company called Checkpoint. That was the extent of my knowledge. Like, I didn't know anyone. Well, actually, I don't think there were too many companies actually doing that. It was like I was looking at sort of like job ads and like, what should I even be looking for? What is it called? It took me years to realize, oh, that's what I did back then. Oh, okay. It actually has a name now. Okay, cool. So I love the fact that you combine throughout the years, you combine various technical roles with the business and strategy perspective. That I think that is something that unfortunately we don't see enough. And you mentioned hardware security, for example. My husband is a hardware engineer, and a few years back, he used to do security back a gazillion years ago. And one day he comes over to me and says, May, I want to educate my engineers. Do you know of anyone providing hardware engineer? And he's like proper board designer. Like, can you find me someone that does board design security courses? I'm like, no. No. And I actually went down that rabbit hole. And you had the privilege of seeing it, especially because you were working for Intel and you were working for this massive global company that had so many different moving parts.
Yeah.
While this industry is growing, while they were looking at the security world as, I'm guessing, some sort of business engine.
Right.
I want to ask you about looking back at your career. Was there like an aha moment that you can reflect back on that sort of changed your perspective around where cybersecurity is positioned?
There were several, but what comes to mind is, and it gets back to Intel, right? When I was at Intel and when I really started and I built out the Security Operations Center, and I got to bring in incredible numbers of highly intelligent, skilled people in the network space and server space and mainframes and apps and all these things. Because it was such a technically oriented organization, right? With architects, engineers, developers, so on and so forth. The viewpoint from the lowest level all the way up to the board was cybersecurity is strictly a technology problem. And we're technologists. We solve the most difficult technology problems at nanoscale. So we're simply going to we're going to solve cybersecurity. And I remember one of the first executive meetings that I had, and it was with the CIO. And he's like, hey, yeah, we're going to invest. We're going to fix it. I want you to treat it just like a light switch. We're going to turn security on, and it's going to be done. We're putting it under IT because that's what IT does. IT deals with obstacles. We resolve the obstacle and it's fixed. And I tried to express to him, and again, I have a background in going, no, intelligent threats, they adapt to whatever you do. It's not an obstacle, it's an opposition. And those are fundamentally different things. And he's like, no, you don't understand. And I'm like, okay, all right, yes, I need funding, I need headcount, sure. Let's go down this path. And, that type of mentality I found in every business group that I went to. And in many of the technology companies that I went and helped out on behalf of Intel, the same, the mentality was there. And that's one of the biggest barriers. When I first started speaking to boards and speaking to C-suites all across the globe, the number one question they would ask me, what solution do I need to buy to fix cybersecurity?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I know where this is going. Okay, let's time out. Let's back it up. Let's go through. And I had a whole spiel that I would go through and talk and get them to that aha moment of, oh, this isn't an IT problem. IT is the landscape. It's the battlefield. But there's other players on this battlefield that we really need to worry about. And so, once they got to that point and to that epiphany, then they realized, oh, this is a different game. Oh, whoa, wait a sec. We don't know what we're doing. And I'm like, yes, this is a perfect place to start. You're right. You don't know what you're doing. Let's move forward and get you to a better position where you can understand, you're more confident, and you can dial in that security, right? It's not binary. It's not you have it or you don't. There is a sweet spot, and it's a balance between what you're willing to spend, the friction you're willing to absorb in your business because of security, and how much risk that you're willing to maintain, right? What's your risk appetite? And based on that, that gives you a zone that's your happy place, and that's really what you want to target. And when they started realizing, oh, I can treat this like a business risk, right? And
Because it is.
This is what boards deal with. They deal with business risk all the time, competitive, financial, regulatory. They're like, oh, okay, if I have the right leader that can explain it to me, then I can dial that in with all my other risks. Okay, no, we can manage it. You don't need to panic. We can do this. Yes.
So now I'm going to challenge you.
Okay.
And that's a conversation I had with various people over the years. We always treat cybersecurity and cyber risk as sort of a different animal than normal business risk. And you've been an advisor to boards all over the world. And you just mentioned that basically it's a risk. Yes, the battlefield is technology, but it is a risk. Should it be under the risk management, like the corporate business risk management, or should it still be a unit on its own?
So there's not one answer to that. It really depends on the organization, because the organizations have their own objectives and goals, right? If you're a government agency, you just want services and uptime and so forth to be able to service your population. If you're a traditional business, it's about profit. It may be expandability. It may be increasing market share. You may be in a highly contentious place, and it's really about competitive advantage, right? How do I get an edge? If you're just a mom and pop shop, it may just be, we have some things we sell online, but we just want to make sure our inventory is right. Okay. Depending on what you need, right? That should really depend on the type of leadership you have, your position, and that should fit in one area better than another. So I've seen cyber report into, and I typically report into either the CEO or the president. Right, that's where I've typically reported into when for small and medium businesses when I become their CISO, which works out great. I've seen it report under IT, and that has advantages but also disadvantages. I've seen it report under risk, right, under the risk groups. I've seen it report under legal, and that most of the time that does not work well. There are a few industries where it is okay. Specifically, the legal industry, it actually is okay.
Yeah.
So
Under
they've got a
operations as
different
well.
viewpoint of what they need and other things. But it can report in many different places. One thing we are seeing in the industry is it is being elevated. Year over year, we're seeing more and more CISOs rise from CEO -3, -4, -5 up the ranks. And if you are reporting into the CIO or CTO, at this point now, most CISOs are reporting directly to the CIO or CTO.
Yeah.
And so, generally speaking, the role, focus, and importance recognized to cybersecurity is being elevated. And we've got now close to a majority of CISOs reporting to the board at least once a year on risk. So that gives them a certain level of visibility as well. So the industry is changing. The reporting structures are changing. There is no standard that works. And we have to accept that it's continuing to evolve.
Oh, definitely. And I think that one of the questions that I hear a lot, especially in the Cybermania Pro community, is people telling me, I want to transition into leadership. And you basically transition from tech to leadership in various roles, both as a CISO, and we'll tap into the fact that you've been a CISO for so long. I mean, kudos to you. It's not an easy job, but I mean, I'm still recovering from my last CISO job. Whenever people tell me, "What do you do?" I'm a recovering CISO.
Yeah.
I was actually asked to be a CISO again a couple of weeks ago. I was offered a CISO position. I don't even know how they found me and they called me, and like my first reaction was, oh wow, this sounds like an incredible opportunity, and like they have tens of thousands of employees around the world, and it was like, oh wow, that sounds so amazing. And I'm like, are you insane? Are you crazy? You've been there. Yeah, but that's a different question. So going back to that question around the CISO's role, and you mentioned CISO and you also mentioned BISO, which unfortunately in many organizations that I talk to have no idea what I'm talking about. Even when I say the CISO needs business understanding, a lot of security professionals don't really resonate with that. And I want to ask your perspective. How much does business understanding, does a business perspective influence your day-to-day job today?
It should influence it every single day, right? Cybersecurity is woven into every aspect of the business, in every business group, and it needs to be able to provide value to the entire organization, because every organization is there, it has a purpose, it has a role, and it contributes. If there's an organization in the company that doesn't contribute anything, I mean, why do you have it, right? It'll be gone. It'll eventually disappear. And sometimes they appear pet projects of some exec, but for the long term, right, the business groups, whether they're inward facing or external facing, have a purpose and a value. And cybersecurity can contribute to that. One, it can protect it, but two, it can typically provide a business value to that organization as well. It might be a competitive advantage. It might, in some cases, we actually see security now providing revenue, right? Organic revenue that the other organizations aren't doing. We see good, better, best, where you can up-level the average selling price. You can preserve or enhance margins in using cybersecurity. And again, these are non-traditional ways of thinking about cybersecurity, but this is where the next generation of CISOs are going. They have to, because the cost of cybersecurity continues to go up every year. And we have to, right? Because we have to deal with more powerful threats, and our landscape, that battlefield, is constantly changing, and we have to protect every new thing. So our costs go up, but if we don't show value in simply this, we're protecting you from something which may or may not happen kind of position, it gets really tough to continue to invest more and more and more every year in essentially what is often viewed as a cost center. Not something that's adding to the bottom line, it's just kind of protecting what you have. Transformational CISOs will take and break that third wall, and they will position their organization to start contributing as a business advantage, as a revenue generator, as an ability to again work with your ASP, protect your margins, all those kinds of things, expansion, growing your share of market, all these great things. And that shows different kinds of value that is appreciated more by those business partners, as well as the C-suite and the board. So this is where the transformational CISOs have to go, and the ones that don't won't survive.
Couldn't agree more. That's my doctorate work, basically, finding ways in which cybersecurity can positively impact the business bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, for people who are already in the industry, mid-level cybersecurity professionals aspiring to those leadership, strategic roles, CISO roles, etc., what would be your advice to them? How can they build those skills, that sort of mindset, actually, of a business leader, not just a techie?
Yeah. Well, you touched on one of the things. First off, I would say be careful what you ask for. Right? People think, oh, cybersecurity, this is the top job. Of course I want the top job of my industry. It's sexy. You're in the comfy chair and the big desk, and I'm sure you've got an office and and many people don't understand the level of stress and responsibility that is involved. And, a lot of people in our industry come up from that tech foundation. And they're used to, especially if they're developers or architects or engineers, they have a mindset of you give me a problem and I will solve it. And once I solve that problem, I push it aside and I can go on to the next problem. And again, cybersecurity is fundamentally different than that. You don't get that luxury. As soon as you solve it, the attacker goes, oh, another problem. I'm just going to go around it. I'm going to go over it. I'm going to go through it. And now the problem's still there again. It's just morphed. And it can be very frustrating to people who are used to solving a problem and not having to deal with it again because it's solved. Having just mountains of these problems that never go away. And you don't feel the satisfaction of, I architected that and it's done. I engineered that and it works. I coded this and there are no errors. Right? Those are very satisfying things if you're a developer engineer. You don't get that level of satisfaction in cybersecurity, especially at the leadership level. And
we didn't get attacked today. Yay, us!
Yeah, well, you also have that, right? You have a huge amount of ambiguity and chaos, right, to accompany this chaos. You don't always control how the cards fall in this game. So you may be having the greatest day ever. Hey, everything's going great. Metrics are awesome. Life is wonderful. And then you get the phone call. And that whole house of cards just collapses. And you now have to go explain and figure out why this crisis is happening. And security didn't catch it and didn't block it. And now you're trying to resolve a crisis issue to stop the hemorrhaging, evict the attacker, claw back as much data as you can, and you go from the best day ever to the worst day ever thinking, I'm not going to have a job after this, right? My career, my reputation is gone, and you had basically, very little control in regards to how that day was going to go. So that level of ambiguity and simply not knowing drives people bonkers. It really does. And, we had talked even before we started recording, to be in this industry, either you have to truly have a passion for it, right? And are willing to embrace the chaos and ambiguity, or you have to be clinically insane because you're just not gonna last. So
Yeah.
my first, litmus test in talking with people that, go, oh, I aspire to be a CISO. Okay, let's have a conversation. Let's walk through a day or a week and see if you really want to do this. And a good 30% of them go, you know what? No, no, that's not
No,
me.
no,
Nope,
thank you.
nope. Good thing I talked with you. I kind of want to go this route. Okay, great. So, first and foremost, figure out if that's really the life that you want to have, right? You don't want to go into a job where you absolutely hate it and you come home and have to kick your dog or something, right? And you need therapy. You want to be able to enjoy it, embrace it, because if you're not, if you're miserable, you will make every single person within your organization miserable. So
Yeah. And
leadership starts at the top, but it definitely rolls down.
uh, I, I, I love what you just said because I think it has a lot to do with who you are and what is sort of your personality structure. Some people, for example, love leading teams. Other people, and we see it a lot, I think, maybe more than other industries in the tech world. We see it a lot. We see people in tech roles, they were doing a job, an engineer, whatever, became a team lead, etc., and they become managers. Now, you may be the best developer in the world. It doesn't mean that you know how, that you know and you want and you can and you should lead people.
Yeah.
Those are different skills. That's a different type of personality. And it doesn't make you a better or worse person. It just makes you a different person. And I think
Yeah.
one thing that I would like to see, not just in cybersecurity, in the tech industry in general, are other paths of recognizing people who excel in what they do, but may not be suited or want or aspire or suitable for the managerial route. That's something else. I have a friend, he's an engineer. He recently got promoted and he leads a team of engineers. And every time we go out and we talk and we have time and we spend time together, he tells me, I hate this. I just want to code. I don't
Yeah.
want to be responsible for other people. And that was sort of like, well, you've been in this role for 15 years. It's time for you to grow and become a lead. He doesn't want to. He hates it.
I think that we've done a disservice to our industry because, yes, I do believe you should continually grow. Unfortunately, our industry has framed it in if you're a expert developer or coder or engineer or functionary, right? You have to move into a supervisory role. You have to move into a managerial role. You have to move into a group leadership role. And I think that is a disservice to people who are not wired that way and that doesn't follow their passion. And yet they're railroaded in. You're not successful. You've been in this role for so long, you're not successful. And I've mentored and managed a lot of people. The conversation I typically have with them is what do you aspire to be, to do? What do you want to contribute? Right? Where do you see your story arc going? And it doesn't have to be managerial, right? If you're an engineer or a coder or developer, and you love that, great, stay on that path, right? Learn the next best knowledge, right? Educate others, right? If that's what you want to do, take on new and bigger projects, great. You don't have to go into a supervisory role. You don't have to manage because if that's what you love coding, for example, you move to a managerial position, you're not going
You'll
to be
never see
coding
a line of
anymore.
code again.
Yeah, you're done with that. So if that's your passion, that's what gets you up in the morning and puts a smile on your face, right? Don't abandon that just because somebody else told you that in order to move up, you have to be a managerial person. We've done ourselves a disservice. We have to find better ways to
I completely
accommodate
agree.
people and get them where they're going to be the happiest, where they're going to be the most satisfied, and they're going to be able to contribute the most to the greater good.
I completely agree. I think when you're aligned with who you are and what you do, you're in a better position to excel in what you do. And I still remember to this day, one of my first real positions in cybersecurity was pen testing. I hated it. I was miserable. I found it utterly boring. It was wonderful the first 3 months, but for someone like me with my personality, there was no way I will ever be a good pen tester because that's something that is very wrong for my personality. Is it boring? No, it's absolutely fascinating for someone with a different personality.
Yes.
What I do day to day would sound absolutely terrible, boring. They will pull their hair out for someone who with the right personality to be a pen tester. So I think that, and I think it is part of the maturity that we have to go through as an industry because, as you mentioned in the beginning, we basically started off by making stuff up.
Yeah.
We didn't know what we were doing. I think that we still, to some extent, we don't know what we're doing. And we say now with AI security that I remember started talking about AI maybe 15 years ago, like actively talking about it. And yet AI came along and we were all suddenly so surprised by the boom of AI adoption. And then we said, oh, we put it in guardrails. But if I ask it real nicely and tell it, no, it's not for me. It's for my grandmother. Then it will give you the answer. So, and hopefully maybe, I hope we're doing better with quantum security. I'm not sure, but maybe we'll talk about quantum.
Yeah, we can talk about quantum. We can talk about AI. It's all good.
Yeah, we can't talk about AI. AI, you always say that you look towards the future. Yeah, it's the present. It's not the future. Well, it is also the future.
No. We are just at the tip of the iceberg, right? I mean, the big move to AI has been Gen AI. Gen AI is a subset of deep learning. Deep learning is just one branch of machine learning. Machine learning is just one branch of the larger AI family. So we're only exposing the world, the general population, to a tiny sliver. And when we move into the next era, right, where we're talking agentic AI, different than generative AI, right, that is going to have, I think, an even bigger splash than generative AI did. So
to the general public?
Stand by. What?
It's I'm not sure if it will have such an impact on the general public, like day-to-day adoption, but we'll have to wait and see. But I want to... we'll probably have to talk about it again. But I want to talk about the fact that you talked about leadership and strategy and mentoring, and you've done it for so long. I actually first got to know you via your LinkedIn posts and podcasts and other things that you do where you share your knowledge, your insights, etc. Was it something intentional? Was it something that you said, oh, this is what I want to do, I want to lead the next generation? Or was it something that sort of evolved naturally?
I would say it more evolved naturally. I talk fast, I move at a pretty fast pace, and I like getting things done. And so I found earlier in my career that I would go into a situation and I could see the process flows. I could see the resource allocation. I could see who was good at what and where they were mismatched. And if you see all this on the table, right, you want to fix it. And so I would get so frustrated very quickly going, why aren't we fixing this? And so I would go to whoever's in charge and go, you know what? I see some opportunities here to improve throughput or increased accuracy or reduce costs or whatnot. And typically they would go, well, yeah, sure, give me an example. Okay. And so I would list out 5 or 10 examples. And once we got over that hump, they're like, oh, so you see something I don't see? The next question is, well, Matthew, can you go fix it? Let me go fix it. Right.
Oh, I love that.
And so that would just lead me in and I would go in. And once I fixed it, I got a certain level of satisfaction. And the people working in those roles would also have a higher level of satisfaction. Their skills weren't being wasted. Their time wasn't being wasted. They were more effective. They could see the value of what they were contributing to the end state. And so you had this elevation of satisfaction and throughput and everything that everybody was trying to accomplish. And because of that, now people start coming together and they start respecting each other more for the individual contributions. and you start building a team. And once you get that cohesion of a team, all teams look towards a leader. And sometimes it's the person at the end of the hall with the big desk and the private secretary. But a lot of times it's the person that has brought them together, that knows the struggles, that has helped them through that to maximize and make them feel good about themselves and their contribution, right? And has helped the team congeal. That tends to be the default leader, if not the formal leader, right? That people then tend to go to. And so if you've helped the organization in that way, there's a natural progression for them to start going to you. That's at my, over 2 decades at Intel, I had over 15 different roles, right? We've named a couple of them, but there were many more in that.
Yeah.
And there were just ad hoc roles. So we had a real big hurricane a couple decades ago called Katrina that hit the southern United States. And it was earth-shattering in how many millions of people that it impacted. And Intel volunteered as a bunch of other tech companies to go help with the relief. And so I immediately volunteered, because I volunteer for a lot of different stuff. And they flew us down to Austin. We worked with the Red Cross, which is similar to Red Crescent, Red Cross, right? And they help, it's an aid agency. And our task was to help them set up satellite links to be able to give aid, basically like debit cards and resources, and register people and help people that were displaced communicate with families, right? Because everything was down.
Yeah.
And it was Intel and Dell and Cisco and a whole bunch of others, and we were thrown into this massive warehouse, and we had to come up with solutions. And I was a volunteer, so I came in one of the early groups, and there were already, 200 people there maybe. And I go in and I see what's going on, and it's just chaos. You've got executives in one room kind of communicating with the mothership, right? But not communicating with anybody else. You've got some higher end managers who were managers at their respective companies in a different room. And they're plotting things on maps, and they're trying to piece things together. And then they'll send a runner into this manufacturing area and tell people, hey, I think we need to build this, right? And we had the network team who didn't talk to anybody at all, right? And I'm like, and they were trying to build things, and they would give these little groups of people little assignments. And half the people were standing around doing nothing. And I'm like, we have people in our country that need help, and this isn't working. So I excused myself, walked into the room where the managers are, observed them, said, nope, not effective here, walked into the executive room, right? They kind of looked at me, and I looked back at them, and they must have thought, oh, well, he must be here. He's supposed to be here, right? And so I just sat back, and I listened to the conversation. And again, nothing was being made. And I threw out a couple of poignant questions, and everybody agreed, yeah, we really need to do X, Y, and Z. And I had already understood what the capacity was, what the capability, the talent pool, the management. And I immediately said, and what they needed is they needed basically technical kits to be built. And with networking and PCs and servers, and then drop them all over the South. And I said, we can build that here. We have the components, we have the talent, we can get that done. You figure out where they need to be dropped, tell us how many, we'll manufacture them. And they said, you can do that? And the other managers in the room were like, well, we don't know if we can do it. And I said, yes, we can. I was just on the floor, I know the management, we have the components, we can do it. And so all the other managers got real quiet, like, oh, let this guy put his neck on the line. Okay. So they told me, yeah, let's do it. So I went into the next room, told the managers, this is what we're going to do. This is how many we're going to do of it. And I walked back in, told everybody to drop what they were doing, rallied everybody around me, and said, I want 2 manufacturing lines. Instead of groups of people assembling one kit at a time, right, I want 2 assembly lines. I assigned a safety manager, I assigned a production manager, I assigned a resource manager for all the people coming in and out. Just assigned it all, said line it up, and we got the right people in the right, and we started pumping out these things. We increased it by 30 times, right?
Amazing.
30 times the production capacity, and we had it done ahead of schedule. So, and it made everybody feel good because everybody was then put to work, and we were able to deliver these, and it was just amazing. It was amazing. And, the managers came back to me, the senior execs, and like, who are you? It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is we got the job done, right? And they're like, we got the job done. I said, yes, you did. You're awesome,
So I want to highlight 3 things that I heard from this story. 3 things that I really hope that our listeners already also picked up on. Number 1 is leadership. A lot of people wait to be in that leadership role to become a leader. No, you lead by example. You take the initiative and you just do it. And the best leaders I personally knew or know were leaders way before they had that leadership title. So that is number 1. The second is opportunities don't just pop around. You're actively looking for them and you initiate them. And last but not least, so many people underestimate the value of volunteering.
Oh, yeah.
Especially the experience that you can get via volunteering. And the story you just shared had nothing to do with your official job. It was a volunteering position. It's been, since Katarina, it's been about 20 years, right?
Yeah.
Something like that, 15 years maybe, something like that. You still remember it to this day. It was.
Oh, I do.
It must have been a very influential experience, and I can totally relate from similar experiences that I had. And so many people don't take the time. They don't go beyond their day-to-day job. People ask me, well, why do you volunteer to be on the board of directors for IC, for example? Yeah, the board takes up hundreds of hours every year. I don't care what the official story is. It takes up about twice as much as what we... No, I'm kidding. But it does take up a lot of time. And I volunteer in so many different capacities, not just with IC, in general in the community, and not just in the cyber community. And I've learned so much. I would have never, ever got the opportunity to be on the IC2 board and other paid boards as well, not just volunteer boards, had I not taken the initiative to start, for example, the IC2 chapter back in the day. What was it? A decade ago.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have got the opportunity to found the chapter, and no one would have given me the chance had I not volunteered to lead the events committee in the municipality I used to live in. So volunteering, you can actually build your experience way before you have the title, way before you have the I'm a leader, I now should learn how to lead. No, you need to learn that way before.
I completely agree, right? If you're looking for leadership opportunities, you've probably already overlooked. What you should be looking for are problems. Because for every problem, there is an opportunity. And if it's a persistent problem, it means it's a real opportunity to show leadership. And I had so many jobs at Intel. And after I did, my first big one where I landed and managed the first SOC, my viewpoint on my career really changed. I could have stayed in that position and continued to manage it and so forth, but it was built. It was humming. It was good, right? There were other bigger problems now that needed to be addressed. And so I moved on to the next problem and the next problem. And in my mind, I always wanted to go after the next impossible problem. And that actually shaped the conversations when I went to talk and get these roles. Coming out of the first couple roles, when I was done, I would send out an email to my my community within the company and go, hey, I'm now looking for the next impossible problem in cybersecurity. Who's got it? And invariably, right, between 20 minutes and 3 hours, I had another job. That's all it took. I would just get a flood of emails going, come work for me, come work for me. And I'm like, well, what's your problem? What's your problem? And some people were like, well, I just want you to come work for me. You're so good at this. Thanks, appreciate it. No, what's your problem? right? And so when I would find that impossible problem, it's like, ooh, no one's figured this out yet. Nobody's proven that return on security investment can actually be calculated. Let me go do that. I want to go do that, right? I want to go justify a several $100 million security program using an algorithm that doesn't exist. All right, I can do that. Let me try. Let me go and do. And so I would typically frame the agreement, and I had several conditions, right? I would only travel if I wanted to, and no relocation, all this. But I would also say, I'm going to solve your problem in 18 months, and then I'm gone. I want that known now. Right? I don't want you to think I'm here forever.
Staying forever,
I'm
yeah.
going to solve your problem, and then I'm gone. And most managers are like, well, I don't want you to leave. Well, this is a condition of me joining. And, if the problem is really that severe to them, they're like, fine, come in, solve my problem. I'll convince you later. Okay, sure, I'm going to come in. And so I would end up moving. And that was, for me, intellectually, that challenge continued to drive, and it continues today to drive me. What is the next problem in the industry? Let's talk about it. Let's work on it. I talked about transformational CISOs. That's one of the next big problems that we need to work on.
Absolutely.
So
I love that. And
look for the problems, because those are the leadership opportunities. Nobody ever says, "Hey, I need a really good leader." Right, I've got a leadership role. Come. No, there's a problem, and
you
they
have to show the
need
initiative.
somebody to
they
solve
need
that.
the initiative, and I think the fact what you just mentioned, that when you said I'm open, I'm looking for the new challenge, and those opportunities came to you, is something that I've been talking about for a long time. Talking about personal branding, and people think, personal branding, and we'll touch upon your amazing LinkedIn profile in a second. It is amazing. It is amazing. What is it now? 195,000, something like that.
Yeah, I think it's right around there. Yeah,
it's closing into 200. It's insane. But people tell me, no, I don't need a personal brand. You're an entrepreneur. You need a personal brand. I don't need it. Well, I didn't want to get passed on for promotions when I was working for companies. That's why I built my internal personal brand. And when I was looking for opportunities outside, I want those opportunities to come to me, not to sit there, I'm looking for a job. Now let's start building a brand when no one knows who I am. So let's talk about your incredible personal brand. It's incredible. It's incredible. I don't think that a lot of creators in the cybersecurity space that reached that number, anything in that area even. So you are an inspiration definitely to me, and I know to many other content creators.
There's a handful in cybersecurity that have reached close to the 200,000 mark. So
very few.
And people do have an issue with brand. Oh, you have a personal brand. I say, okay,
What's
you may
wrong
not
with a
want a
personal
personal brand, but what about a reputation? Do you want a reputation that you can solve problems, and that you're open, and that you're going to contribute, or you like to volunteer? Well, yeah, I want a reputation. I want a reputation that I do good work.
How would anyone know that?
That's a brand right there.
That's your brand. And if you don't tell anyone,
I didn't think
something
about
amazing,
that.
but I'm not going to tell you about it.
Right.
It's a secret. I will never ever tell you something amazing. I just did something
I'm
amazing.
I'm going to keep it a secret.
Yeah, no one should know. No. It's only me. Yeah. So how important is it for you to live that, dare I call it, legacy? It's a big word, but it is.
I don't think about it, right? People often ask me, well, how did you get to, 195 or almost 200,000 followers? What's the secret? What did you do? And my answer is, I don't know. Honestly, I was writing papers before, the internet, or well before blogging even existed, before social media. Patents, white papers, articles, things of that sort, doing lectures, teaching, keynoting, things of that sort. When blogging started to come out, I started doing that simply as a way to deal with a lot of the things just bouncing around in my head. It was cathartic to me. If I saw a problem in the industry, I would chew on it in my brain. But if I sat down and I wrote a post or a blog or an article and sent it off to the world, right? Here's my recommendations, or this is what we need to do, or why aren't we doing this? it got it out of my brain so I could focus on the other things. So it was really cathartic for me to be able to do that. Now, for whatever reason, people wanted to read that or started listening to that. And so they started following me. But, everybody said, oh, get on Twitter. You got to be on Twitter. I hate Twitter. Absolutely hated it. You
The
know,
only one.
if you want to tell people what you're having for breakfast, it is a great platform.
If you want to let out everything that is bad in your life and you really want to feel bad about humanity, go to Twitter. I'm sorry.
And at
Every time I feel like,
140 or
oh, everything
200
is going
characters
fine,
or
I need to
whatever.
get angry with someone, I'll just open up Twitter and that's it.
It's great to
there.
vent, but if you want to build a cohesive argument, if you want to dissect a problem and offer paths of imagination or intuition or exploration or resolution, that is not a platform for it. So I'm not interested in hearing my own voice. I'm interested in generating discussions. So, LinkedIn actually came to me while I was at Intel and said, and originally LinkedIn, many people don't know this, it was just kind of a jobs board. And they had said, hey, we're starting this program where we kind of want to get into this blogging thing where experts can, and I said, well, I'm already doing that. And they said, we like what you're writing. Will you come on board and blog on our platform? And it was still in beta. So I was one of the first beta people for LinkedIn. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. I mean, I'm just going to republish what I publish elsewhere. They're like, yeah, no problem, no problem. And so I did. And again, the community at LinkedIn, it's professionals. It's one of the only social network for professionals. So you weed out a lot of the people just talking about what they had for breakfast or the color of their dog or what fashion shoes they're wearing today. Right? You weed all that out and you tend to talk about business issues and so it was a great fit. And so it's been a great partnership, right? They've reached out and said, hey, will you do a class for us? So I did a class for LinkedIn Learning and, and I've done other things with them. And it's just been great. It's been mutually beneficial to them and to me. And I use it as a hugely important tool because I have this community now. And when I have a question or I have an issue or I think, why aren't we doing this? I can throw it out to my community and we start talking about it. We get different perspectives and different aspects and ways of thinking. And you see this creativity that is backed by expertise. And we can really kind of make some progress, weed out the dark paths that don't lead anywhere, the dead ends, and uncover productive paths to solve many of the issues that we deal with so that we can be ready for the next issues that come in that we need to deal with. But having that network not only helps you in your career, getting the next job, it helps you while you're in the next job too, because the problems that you're going to experience, chances are other people already have. And they already have some really valuable insights for you so you don't have to make the same mistakes. So I continually use and engage on it. Why I have 195,000 followers, I have no clue whatsoever. But I'm appreciative of them all. And I love it when they interact because that's when I get to learn. And sometimes I'm sharing information I know and the world learns. And most of the time I'm listening and learning from what the world has experienced and their lessons. So I benefit as well.
That's so amazing because I think that this is the true power of community and networking.
It is.
And having that lifelong learning mindset. So before we go to the pop quiz, which is the final part of the show, I want to ask you one last question. Yeah, okay. it did really, we breezed through it.
I didn't know I was going to be quizzed. I should have been taking notes. Wait a second.
No. It's that's
cheating. Can
no.
I?
No.
Oh, dang it.
So before we get to the pop quiz, you've been in this industry for a very long time, and you're still super passionate about it.
Oh, yes.
Is this something that you're actively learning or want to learn about this field, about this industry that you haven't had a chance to tap into yet?
The list is so long. It is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, I do a lot of work still with threat actor archetypes, understanding the different threat agents. In fact, every year I do cybersecurity predictions. And that may be one of the reasons people follow me.
It is.
And my predictions, it's not marketing fluff. I'm not trying to sell a product or anything like that. It's a deep dive into really understanding what's ahead of us and what we need to start moving on now. And I normally, it's normally, 15, 20 pages long. So it's not some security vendor. These are the top 4 things this year. I take it seriously, and I've been doing it for more than 2 decades. I did it at Intel, and I started at Intel doing it. So I've done 1, 3, 5, 7, and I even did a 10-year look ahead while I was at Intel. I was able to release all of those except for the 10-year look ahead. That was considered, and I fought for it. I really did, because I think the industry needs to know what's coming. It helps us all, right? The only group it doesn't help are the attackers. So, I wanted to share that, but the 10-year got axed and said it's a competitive advantage. We don't want anybody else to know, but I fought for it. But I do every year now. I still do a 1-year, 18-month look ahead. And whether it's the predictions about the threat agents, whether it's looking at disruptive technology, we mentioned a couple of them, right? We've got next generation cloud, we've got AI, generative AI, we've got agentic AI, and eventually general AI coming. We've got quantum. We've got the quantum entanglement aspects of it. We've got quantum computing aspects of it. The hardware, you've got the use of Shor's algorithm and other algorithms to break encryption. We've got shifts in encryption, just as we have in the past, right? Encryption is a continuing story. There's just so many different things that interest me. Right now, one of my projects for the next year is kind of that transformational CISO, because I see a cliff coming. I really do, where we've got a lot of CISOs that can't adapt. They can't speak to the board. They can't see beyond value. They're still just technologists. And if they don't evolve, they're not going to survive. And I fear we will distill down as an industry to a very small community of highly capable CISOs that won't be enough. And those gaps will be taken advantage of by the attackers. And if you don't adapt, your budget is probably going to even shrink. It's definitely not going to grow. You won't be able to keep pace. You will be an easier victim. You will suffer impacts which will make you look worse, and it's a downward spiral from there. Right? So that's one of the things in the next couple of years that I think is most important, at least for me. And that's, when I mentor CISOs and I talk with boards, these are the topics to kind of get ahead and get them prepared. And so I've done, I just did a recent poll on LinkedIn that talked about how important this topic is, how important, and 82% came back and said, yes, this is a major issue. And a smaller percentage said, yeah, it's kind of an issue. And then I had a whole bunch of options talking about, no, it's not an issue. It'll resolve itself. And yet the vast majority, everybody came back and said, no, this is an issue and it's got to be resolved. So, I'm trying to make traction in that space. I may actually create another class for board members and for CISOs and cybersecurity leaders that want to be CISOs in how to bridge that chasm and be that, help the organization shift to see cybersecurity as a much more value add and allow the leaders to work together, speaking the same language, to where they can position themselves properly, that optimal level of security in respect of the overall business goals. So
I love that. Definitely worth following you only for that. Definitely. So you might see more followers coming in now. See? And you were wondering why people follow you. So many reasons. I can give you a list.
I talk a lot.
I can give you a list. So as always, we wrap up these sessions with a very quick pop quiz. Very short questions, very short answers. Whatever comes to mind, no right or wrong answers. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Fantastic. Okay. So if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
Follow your passion, right? Again, I started and I had doubts when I started in this industry. I had huge doubts of whether this really was worth going down, and I followed that passion, but there were doubts. I would love to go back and tap myself on the shoulder and go, "Don't doubt it. Go
It's
for your
fine.
passion." Right?
Fantastic. Can you mention a book or a movie you saw that had nothing to do with cybersecurity, but really had a deep impact on your life personally?
The favorite book that I've ever read is nonfiction, and it's very old, right? It's Sun Tzu's Art of War. And it was created before modern technology, before anything digital or anything like that. But it amazed me in how it ties intelligent adversaries in dealing with what you're trying to accomplish, right? And how that becomes a problem. And it made sense to me why this book on warfare has become so popular and is in every military college in existence. But it's also part of business programs and business degrees and MBAs to understand your business adversaries. And I took those lessons very, very early on and applied it to cybersecurity. And it tremendously helped me when the rest of the world was saying, this is just a technology problem. Like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Right? I'm
No.
looking back on all these lessons, and that enabled me to start predicting. You know what's going to happen if we do this? This is what's going to happen. No, 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 no. If we do that, it's fixed. And then it would come true.
Yeah.
Right? And you see that 4 or 5 times, and then they're starting to come back to me going, you might have been on to something. Yeah, okay.
Well,
What are
I
you
read my
predicting next?
history books, basically. I love that.
So-
What's the most unexpected place your cybersecurity journey took you to?
So I've traveled all over the world, sometimes in places that were not exactly safe or friendly. I'm trying to think one I can talk about. During Arab Spring, I found myself in Cairo. And this is after all the police were run out of the city. And then in Cairo, you actually have 2 sets of police departments. You have the regular police department, then you have the kind of art antiquities police department that guard, and they were run out. The military had come in, who was highly respected by the people, and they kind of established order. And some of you may remember kind of Tahit Square. And there was
Yep.
always the tanks sitting there, and the reporters were in the Hilton reporting down on this. I landed the very day the tanks left Tahit Square, the very day the army left. So you had no police force. You then no longer had the army there to keep the peace. So I landed and I was still with Intel at the time, and I had actually asked for security escort because my manager asked for it. And so the security teams that we have came back and said, no, we're not going to send people there. We can't. It's just not safe enough. And so I still went, and so I went by myself. But there was a curfew on. All the neighborhoods had walled themselves up and had their own mini militias. All the embassies were emptied out, including the U.S. Embassy. So I remember going, and I stayed at a hotel, and they had 3 different security checkpoints to check for bombs in the vehicle, to check for this. They had airport scanners for metal and everything, but I had to go out into the city. So it was a fun and interesting experience, and I got to meet some incredible people there. The people were wonderful that I got to meet with. But it wasn't
Amazing.
necessarily safe. But I had a lot of fun. I
Well,
got to see the pyramids, and there were zero
It's
crowds.
definitely unexpected.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would have gone, but fair enough. Okay. How do you celebrate your achievements?
So I'm a firm believer that achievements are accomplished through a team. It's never just a single person. And, I learned very early on, and I still follow the mentality, that if a team succeeds, it is the team that should be recognized. If it fails, it is the leader's sole responsibility of that failure. So when I have a success, I am celebrating and recognizing those people around me because they were the ones who actually manifested it, right? If it's a failure, I'm the first one to step up. Nope, I failed. I failed. And when I go to the senior management, that's what I'm saying. Which also motivates me to make sure that I don't fail.
We don't fail.
Make sure that I'm leading the team to success, because I absolutely believe it is up to, and it is on the shoulders of the leaders.
But do you celebrate those successes?
Failures. What?
Do you celebrate them?
Oh, absolutely. I tend to celebrate them by recognizing the team and the teamwork and individuals and their individual contributions and how it all made it happen, right? I don't need to celebrate myself. I'm celebrating them, right? Without them and their contributions and them working together, that really is where I get my excitement out of it. And you can see in their faces, right, the appreciation, and they come closer together as a team. And even when they separate and move on to other projects, you see those connections, right? Remember that project we were on? Remember that other thing we did? Oh, we nailed it out of the park over there, right? And you see these reinforcement strings, right? It's like neurons in your brain. You're reinforcing those connections. And you see that with the people that you work with. I think that's amazing. And that's one of the ways that I celebrate it, because I get a thrill out of that.
That's fantastic. Last but not least, can you mention a trait or a mindset that you believe that every successful cybersecurity leader needs, but it's often overlooked or not talked about enough?
A couple, right? One, strategic thinking, because security doesn't get solved. It's managed over time. So you have to be looking ahead, and we maximize our impact by being able to look ahead and position accordingly, right? If we're stuck in the firefight response phase, you're at your lowest, efficiency and effectiveness. But I would say the number one thing, trust. Security is based on a foundation of trust, and that means integrity and ethics and reliability and things of that. And we can say, oh, well, I've got these tools. It comes down to the leader as well. So if the people around you don't trust you for whatever reason, maybe you tell white lies, maybe you don't show up on time, maybe you tell them to do things that you don't do, maybe you don't lead from the front, they're not going to trust you. And yet, that is one of the fundamental aspects of leadership and sustainability of winning by a team. You have to have that trust, and it has to start up high. So I would say trust. Build it. Own it.
I love that. Matthew, this was such an amazing conversation. I can't believe we went on for over an hour. Honestly, I could have continued for the next 2 hours, but I'll be respectful of our listeners and just have you hopefully back here soon. Hopefully.
Absolutely.
Yay! So I really want to thank you for joining me today. And for those listening, I hope to see you here next time on Cybermania.
It's time for Cybermania bloopers.
I can do it. I'm sure I can do it. Okay. Wait a minute. Is it Matthew or Matt?
Rufus, Steve, whatever works for
Ooh,
you.
Rufus. We can try that. Okay, so we'll do it again. Okay. I won't call you Joe today. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Wait. And I did it again.
It's Swedish.
Rosen?
It's actually a very common name in Sweden. It means branch of a rose.
Well, Matthew Rosenquist is with me today.